If you're innovating, creating, or making a difference, this show is for you. Welcome to Over Coffee. I'm Dot Cannon. Here on Over Coffee, we talk with artists and innovators about the process of changing the world in terms of what they do.
It's still that feeling of performance when you know that somebody is on the other end experiencing what you're creating. Being able to learn on this club standard Pioneer DJ equipment, the stuff that you would find in the highest end clubs around the world is there in VR right in front of you. It's the sharing of music. It's a modern version of our tribe.
Do you know someone who's dreamed of being a DJ, but they don't know how to try it out and see if it's for them without spending a lot of money? TribeXR has a great alternative. Their app allows users to DJ in virtual reality and to perform in the metaverse. And in their online community, they offer daily workshops and live training from mentors. They're also partnering with a number of nonprofits and educational institutions. Lee Chernowetz is an award-winning multimedia producer, a professional DJ, and community engagement manager and mentor for TribeXR. Lee, before we get to talking about TribeXR, I realize I'm talking to a total multimedia professional here. How did DJing come into the mix for you among all your audio-visual work?
Well, yeah, I had been, audiovisual engineer for a long time, a musician, a radio DJ for a while. And I, didn't really get into properly DJing, as we would say, sort of club DJing, the performance aspect of DJing until I found Tribe. So actually, I learned to DJ through Tribe, and I've, since moved on to real controllers and just completely learning in the virtual sphere. And that's basically how I got my start with, proper DJing.
Tell me about that experience, please. Here you are with all this background in the world and a little bit of DJing as a radio professional, but now you're in the metaverse. What was that like for you the first time?
Right. With Tribe, it was just, and I came into it as a user first before I joined the team. And, basically being able to learn to use on this like club standard Pioneer DJ equipment, the stuff that you would find on any festival stage or in the highest end clubs around the world is there available to you in VR right in front of you. So it's just amazing when you learn, you're learning on the best equipment and you're able to kind of see how much you like it, like dip your toes in the water, right? I think, as far as outlaying a ton of money, there's always that friction there. If you want to learn something, you want to learn to play guitar, but you don't want to necessarily buy a guitar, it can be quite an expense. In this case, in VR, for other learning tools, it gives us that opportunity to kind of have this virtual hands-on with it and see if you like it. And a lot of our users have moved on. They'll stay in the metaverse and they'll stay within the community and use Tribe as a tool for performance. But they'll also, if they decided they liked it, they could actually move on to real gear. And we have plenty of stories in our community of people who have used Tribe, like myself, learned on Tribe and moved to real thing. And we've even had users that have never played live with real equipment before. And they had their first gig was the first time they actually touched real equipment, like at their performance. And most of them do pretty good. It really does translate using the VR tech because it's using your same, muscle memory, your motor functions. And a lot of DJing, of course, it's an art in a sense that it's song selection, it's knowing your music, reacting to people. So there's just so much of it that does directly translate. It's actually, I was surprised.
What's really impressive to me is how this is knocking down the barrier of cost. Just as you said, this is an application that, if I'm correct, is about $30 for your headset.
Yes, it's $30 for the software. We do have like a premium tier on top of that, but that's not required to do most of our lessons and the learning. And we offer free workshops and support calls because it really is it is about the community as well. So our hope is that when someone jumps into Tribe, there's tutorials, there's like some gamified learning in there, which, kind of scores. And also, there's sort of these, what we call beat highway lanes that will come down and show you which button you should press at what time. So it has this gamification and also easing you into it. It's like, basically the training wheels. And then we hope that people jump into our free workshops, of which we have now, I think we're up to 50 per week. So almost any time during the day, almost 14 hours per day, including support calls, you can find somebody that's live there, hanging out, mixing with friends. Yeah. And we have a very large Discord community as well, 10,000 people. So it is all about a social thing. I think that's why it is called Tribe. I think that's the idea. It's the sharing of music. It's a modern version of our tribe, and we stick together.
It's doing something because you love it is what I'm getting when I come on. I see all these free workshops and everything. Would you tell me the story of Tribe? How did the app come about?
So this was a little bit before my time. As I mentioned, I was a user when I jumped in a little bit later, but it was founded in 2017 as an idea. And, the idea was, how could you leverage this new VR tech? It was still nascent at the time. It's still, less close to mainstream as it is now. And it's about how can you use this tech that we know that allows, people in industrial settings, right? It's used all around the world for that purpose, to teach and just, turning a valve, like what is the proper, procedure so you don't, cause an error in the system or something like that. So basically the concept or the question was, how could we use this tech, or could it really be effective into teaching people who have never used this equipment before? And then at the time, it was really focused on, well, can we get them from this into a real club, right? And playing in a real club. I think since then, it has changed a bit because of the really rise of the metaverse and metaverse clubs as well. You don't necessarily have to have that as your end result. Like, people play in Tribe and they never move on to real equipment. They may stick with Tribe, perform as their avatar, whatever they want to look like, and beam themselves into a metaverse virtual club, we're still at the beginning stages of that as well, but that's a really exciting scene.
Previously, TribeXR DJs have been performing in AltSpace. Today, though, you may have even more opportunities to come celebrate with them.
We're working on a hub in another space called Chill Out VR. There's tons of them. So I think we have like a bit of a nomadic streak where we want to be where people are having parties. So we want our DJs, our resident DJs and our events to be everywhere people are. So I think AltSpace was great. We had our club there, but we still love to do events in VR chat. We still love to do events, even in Horizon, in Spatial, in Mix. There's plenty of them. So I think, Tribe is more of the tool for anybody to use to do events in the metaverse and perform that way.
Let's look at this through the lens of a music teacher, since a lot of our listeners are educators. Suppose a teacher sees this, and let's say that they have a number of students who haven't DJed before. Maybe they want to know a little bit more about it. What pathway would you suggest, and what might the students expect to spend in addition to the $30 application for getting the software?
Right. Well, we've actually partnered with educational institutions, some nonprofits as well, that basically utilize VR and utilize Tribe to have experiences, not only just to teach, but to have, these kind of social sharing, right? Because that's what music is all about. Music is all about having that shared experience. So it's a great way especially we've worked with nonprofits that work with troubled youth. And it's a great way to have the youth actually express themselves through songs and selecting songs. It's a great kind of skill to learn. So basically, to do that, you would need any sort of headset. The most common one now is the Quest 2, which is completely standalone. You don't need any sort of computers anymore. You don't need, additional things other than that headset. And there's also in Europe, there's the Pico, which is an alternative that's come up. But yeah, basically any VR headset, we can be available there. And Tribe it's a $30 basically application at this point. So I do have a few ways that we do our workshops and our learnings. Like I said, I'm actually a mentor we have now a team of 10 mentors that teach on the daily, on the regular. And we do it through a video call system where we all get into this room. And it's almost like a Zoom that we're doing right now. But imagine we both have our decks in front of us. And I have a room of up to 20 people that all have their own separate CDJ 3000 and 900 mixers. And basically I teach them and they are able to reproduce the steps and the techniques that I'm showing them. We also have a sort of a multiplayer rooms function where you can actually jump into the same room, operate the same decks, which is amazing for performance because I've done what they call in the industry back to back, where you collaborate with a DJ. One DJ plays one song, the other DJ on the same equipment plays the next song. It's a really fun experience because you're kind of collaborating and building off of what the other DJ is doing. I was able to do that with people from around the world. I've DJed with people in the same room that were somewhere in the UK. Another DJ was in Berlin, and the last DJ was in Australia. And we were all operating the same and kind of doing something collaborative. So that's something that is hard to do in real life as well, that VR and Tribe has sort of enabled that sort of experience. It could also be used in the context of learning. So we do have sometimes, for some of our projects, we'll open a room and then bring other people with other headsets into the room and then able to kind of teach people that way.
How have you grown the most as an artist with experiences like this, getting to DJ from others from all over the world back to back?
Yeah, just collaboratively, I think through performance. Even though I'm performing in metaverse clubs, I'm still getting the butterflies. I'm still, there's a bit of nerves that can happen there, even though I'm sort of like in my headset. I do have some, viewpoint into the club, but it's still that feeling of performance when you know that somebody is on the other end experiencing what you're creating and the experience that you're creating for them. You still have that connection. You still have the connection with people around the world. And yeah, I think that'll only get better as well.
Do the butterflies ever go away?
No, not in my case. I think the first time I did a set where I was imagining an audience, I did have an audience on Twitch. I was having trouble operating because my hands were shaking. So I was grabbing the control and I was pointing it at the screen and to try to operate it. And literally my hands were shaking. And I was like, kind of hold down my arm as I'm pointing and managed to select the right songs. But yeah, that's improved a bit. It's a very good thing to have. I think as a performer, you should have a little bit of nerves. You should be on edge. You should have that feeling of excitement as you're performing.
Back when, I remember looking at DJ equipment thinking, I would be terrified to operate this for fear of making a mistake. It seems that this takes it away, but have you seen some good mistakes people make and what can be learned from them?
Sure. Yeah, I think there is something intimidating, especially about using the high-end equipment. We do have starter decks that are really simplified. That's the idea in Tribe. So it really breaks it down into just the essential things. But it can be intimidating seeing every button, every knob, every fader. And it looks like to some people, the first time they see it, it's like some sort of NASA, control or something like that you'd see. But it really does. Once you learn a few essential things, your volume, your EQ, when to hit play, like deciding when to overlap tracks and which tracks are you playing? What does the audience want to hear? How do these songs go together? There's a lot of it that comes from our sense of expression and our intellect, more so than operating the equipment. There's a lot of things that we can do the idea is we're managing the energy, right? We're managing the energy of the crowd, the energy of the music. We don't want it to just kind of drop off or have a steep increase. We usually want to kind of keep it on an even level. So as a DJ, that's what we're trying to achieve. And a lot of that is just good music selection. It's just knowing what things will go good together, a little bit of music theory, and the rest is just fun. The rest is, you don't have to do too much. If you've got those basics down, yeah.
Manage the energy, select good music, have fun.
Have fun, yes. I'm going to steal that if that's okay. We're going to put that on our website, right?
You got it. What I'd like to ask.
That's the dot cannon method.
I'm curious what, if anything, you would add to that, those three things about creating a good immersive experience. And this could apply to any immersive experience, doesn't have to be DJing. Suppose that you're teaching a mini lesson right now. What would you add to that if we want to really have that audience walk away saying, whoa, that was great?
Yeah, I think I would actually kind of expand on the last point about having fun, because if you're having fun, the audience is going to have fun too. The audience needs to see that you are enjoying yourself. And in that way, another thing to take a little of the pressure off, and this is advice or just something that works for every activity you might do, is when you are performing, when you're doing something, you're going to see all of the mistakes, right? Because you have in your mind a conception of what you want to do. And if you deviate from that, you may feel like you just made the worst mistake in the world. But oftentimes, not all the time, sometimes the audience will notice, but most of the times, especially when DJing, audience has no clue. That you'll kind of maybe be down on yourself. You'll feel like you didn't succeed at what you were trying to do. But if you have those fundamentals that we talked about before and you're having fun, you kind of can cover up those mistakes. And I guarantee most people don't see what you were trying to go for. But in their end result, the end result is that they usually had a really good experience. So that's why anytime, you come into some adversity, something's not working right, you don't really let the audience know that, right? You just have to move on from there and, continue to have fun.
What is the most fun you've had since you've been with TribeXR?
I would say some of it is the alt space events, because really that's the culmination of music sharing, being together in a virtual space. I think that's really where my love for Tribe and VR really came into focus. This was during the pandemic, as I know a lot of people will kind of have that same reaction because it's a very common experience. But, I was unable to go to any nightclubs, right? I was interested in DJing, but I was unable to have that type of social experience for a while until I found a few of our DJs that were running these events in Altspace and other platforms, and like making friendships, like, having something that isn't quite like at this point, isn't quite like going out to a club. It's not an equivalent. And I don't think it should be thought of as an equivalent, or that should not be the aim. However, the social experience of being in VR, dancing, right? You can still do that in your headset, and chatting with people, having sidebar conversations, in another room, and the music is just there in the background, and just meeting people. And yeah, that's sort of really what drew me in.
It sounds like an absolute blast. I'll hope to see some of the events. We should do a shameless plug here. Tell people that you teach workshops. DJ Sickle, am I going to say that right?
Yeah, T Sickle, actually.
Sickle.
Yeah.
And when will you be teaching other workshops?
Our workshops are taught all the time. If you go to TribeXR.com, you can see a list. I think there is daily workshops. So like I said, most of the day we have kind of covered with various workshops from various DJs of all styles. And yeah, so if you want to check them out, also live.tribexr.com, you can actually view them from the web, which is a lot of fun. Like you could actually join the workshop and use even your webcam. So the instructor and the other people in VR will see you in their VR space, actually, with your webcam. So we do have people that jump in and participate, even not without being in VR.
Live.tribexr.com. You mentioned nonprofits. What really drew me to TribeXR was work you're doing with pediatric hospitals. But I'm going to ask you to choose a nonprofit, or it can be the pediatric hospital, or anything that you're doing right now as community outreach with TribeXR, and tell me a little about it.
Yeah, so I think that's something that we're really proud of, and did get a good response, because this is not only is it a great cause. I'm talking about our work with pediatric hospitals, which we've worked with various ones through a nonprofit called Ampere Room. It's a great cause in itself, but it's also a testament to what you can do with VR, not just with DJing, but with anything else, just fostering a connection, remotely and globally. So this partnership with the Ampere Room came about when they were doing tons of work with bringing DJs and artists and musicians into pediatric hospitals. Prior to the pandemic, they were doing a lot of work with that. That halted immediately because it was just dangerous. So there was really a gap there until I think about 2 years later, when Jake from Ampere Room found out about Tribe and had this great idea to actually use the VR tech to remotely connect in, and also utilize the music, utilize sharing, and have a good time without having any of the dangers associated with, in-person experiences. As you can imagine, especially in pediatric hospital, it's still an issue. We might forget about that in some places in our daily life, but for a lot of people, and then especially in these hospital situations, there's still appropriate limits on who can come and go. So this was sort of a natural solution to that. So we started doing that. We've done 2 sessions already, and we have a few more lined up. But yeah, basically connecting with the youth there, and showing how to use some of the equipment and sharing some music. So it was really sort of fulfilling in that way, in a charitable effort, and just a testament to using this tech for something that's positive in the world.
I'm imagining the joy you're bringing to the youth, who now can think about something other than a transfusion, a bandage changing, a whatever that happens in the hospitals.
Exactly. Yeah.
We have been talking a lot about VR and how TribeXR works, but when you say XR, that's augmented reality too. What are some augmented reality applications you're going to have or may have now that I don't know about?
Yeah, so basically, the most interesting use of AR for Tribe is with pass-through, which has some amazing implications for live performance too. Because as a DJ, we do want to kind of have a connection to our audience, right? I can do that through the metaverse. There are ways that I can see into a club, engage what is the audience thinking about my performance? What is the overall vibe there? But basically using the pass-through tech. So we are also partnered with Meta on their Quest Pro, which uses this AR tech in full color pass-through. Also, Quest 2 standalone does have a black and white pass-through. So it's available for the cheaper, more mainstream unit. But basically, it's amazing because you just have these decks in front of you and you can sort of grab them and put them on, maybe on your desk, and it just stays there. Next time you boot up Tribe, it's there. It's just, you can see the room around you in full color with the Quest Pro. And it's just amazing because you can actually interact with people then. If you have a connection with people that are in the room with you that you wouldn't if you're kind of like locked behind these big goggles and, in some sort of virtual immersive environment. So it's a kind of completely different local social kind of experience.
If I understand correctly, I boot up TribeXR. This projects a deck made of light onto my desk or whatever. And it sounds like you could do a lot of other things with this as well. What if you want a purple unicorn? What if you want fog rising virtually out of the computer?
Yes. Yeah, there's some implications too. Down the road, we would love to use AR in a way that other people can kind of see what you're doing. So right now it is actually through your lenses, you see the decks, but other people won't see that. But if they're wearing some sort of, we imagine in the future, some more comfortable, easier to, put on and off, some sort of glasses or something like that. And they can sort of see what you're doing and kind of that experience, your giant unicorn behind you, and they see what you're doing on the decks and they're hearing the music. It has some profound implications, I think.
That would be a lot of fun to design. What about down the road, a year from now, 5 years from now, where do you really want to take TribeXR?
So there's two things I can think of. The first is playing a little more into the metaverse and basically metaverse immersion. So we have all of this data that we capture when someone is using Tribe. First thing, we capture where your head is located, head orientation, where your hands are, and what you're doing on the deck. So that data can also be tunneled into any metaverse and sort of recreated. So you could recreate a 3D version of your avatar inside of the metaverse that uses all that data, and based on anything that you're doing on the decks can also be reflected in that world, maybe with lighting and just more immersive kinds of things rather than a flat screen in that metaverse. So that's one thing. Yeah, the other big thing I would say is music production. We're getting into adding in more different types of equipment. So right now it's DJ focused, but we have some other equipment we developed, a vinyl deck, right? If you want to go old school, but also our first Tribe synthesizer. So it's our own synthesizer we've designed that actually generates music, and you can pop up a piano roll, which is basically a way to input notes into it, and you can design your own bass line, right? That's the idea. And that is our first incarnation. We have a drum machine coming up and a sampler and a few other things. So I think that is really exciting to me as a musician, because I would love some way to actually create really compelling musical works inside of VR.
Realistically, when can people expect to see the piano and the drum machine, timeline-wise?
I think within the end of the year, that would be the goal, to see music production, something where you could create a full piece of music inside of Tribe. And what's exciting also about that, not only as a musician, maybe I would use it to create something, but what actually is more important, or something that is more important to me, is the ability to teach people then, right? Even if they, in this case, they don't use Tribe to make all of their music, perhaps it's still limited in some way, but the fact that they can actually use VR the same way you're learning how to operate a DJ controller, you're learning how to operate a synthesizer, you're learning about all the different pieces that you need to know, that you can take that knowledge, but it's just that you're immersed in the VR, you're feeling like you're doing it, and you have someone there to help train you that's right there with you as you're using this equipment. To me, to teach people also music production in addition to DJing, it would just be amazing.
What if somebody listening is, let's say, someone at a Boys and Girls Club, someone at Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts? They really want to get their young members into this. How do they contact TribeXR?
Yeah, TribeXR.com. There is some resources there for contacts and a web chat, as well as our email is info@TribeXR.com. And yeah, just reach out. And we do like to provide as many resources as possible. So reach out because we can see how we can help. At the very least, what I've done for an Irish charity that works with youth is I was able to mentor the mentors. So basically, they had all of their mentors come in. I did some basic lessons and also got them understanding about how do you teach? What is the best way to teach? And I brought them all in and they could go out then and actually do the mentoring as well. So we're always just interested in helping in that way too, is whether it's, through copies of Tribe or, just being able to work the technology out or just work the best method to actually kind of conduct these types of things that are going to be really beneficial. So definitely reach out and we'll see how we can help.
If you had to sum that up, what is the best way to teach? We could talk about that for another hour, but what would you say briefly? How would you summarize that?
Well, I would say that the best way to do that with a smaller group is to usually, create a room where people can jump in and kind of go through any questions that these students might have, right? We do have some training inside of the app, so it is possible to kind of like give the user a single player sort of experience. Again, we have this thing called game mode that walks people through. We're going to have tons more content there. And then that's the idea is hopefully that's going to set people up to then have questions and then want to actually take the training wheels off and do some things. But a lot of times it is, if you're not that experienced as a DJ yourself, there's tons of things that you can do. It's just kind of, again, sharing music, loading one track, playing the next one, right? If it's not a perfect transition, if you don't know how to use every tool that there is available, that's okay. You're still going to have a great time just selecting the music, having the students select a piece of music, play around with it. I think it's a really positive experience.
And it's interesting that you said that didn't have to be perfect, because I'm thinking, well, perfect is really the enemy of accomplishing a lot of things creatively.
That's right. That's right.
My final question for my podcast, signature question, is if people could only get one thing from you about innovation, creativity, and making a difference, what would you like them to take away from you?
That's a very large question. So let me see if I can take a bite out of that one. I would say that what Tribe is about sharing. Tribe is about sharing, community, encouragement. It's about coming together to improve both in our skill set of what we want to achieve and also as people, right? And as communicators and just the ability to come together, have a great time.
Lee, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
You and I have been listening to Lee Chernowetz, also known as DJ T-Sickle, Community Engagement Manager and Mentor for virtual reality application and metaverse community TribeXR. Find out more about TribeXR's app along with their metaverse community at TribeXR.com and check out their free workshops at live.tribexr.com. And that concludes this edition of Over Coffee. Thank you for listening. Listen to more Over Coffee podcasts at twomavericks.com. That's 2 TWO Mavericks, Maverix. Be sure you subscribe. It's free by clicking the link on our website. Our music is royalty-free production music provided by Pond5 at pond5.com. I'm Dot Cannon. Here's wishing you a cappuccino day.